Everyone here, the meeting to order, and Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Council President Lyda.
Here.
Council Pro Tem Posey.
Here.
Councilmember Sweeney.
Here.
Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Brindlebrooks.
Here.
Councilmember McClinton.
Here.
Thank you, ma'am. If everyone would please rise for the invocation led by our clerk and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Sweeney.
If you'll bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for protecting one of our dispatchers and her family this Friday night when their house caught on fire. Thank you for being with them and keeping them safe and unharmed. Thank you for continuing to be with them and bring them comfort and peace and give them the things that they need. Thank you also for being with the leaders of the city, this state, and this nation. May all the leaders look to you for guidance and wisdom. And thank you for blessing the city and all in it. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now have time for announcements, reports, guest recognitions. Mayor, I believe you have an employee recognition to make.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would, this is a good part of our program where we get an opportunity to recognize our wonderful employees. And tonight, we would ask LaWanna Rooks from the library if she would come up and stand center stage for us. What do you think? Just right over there. Welcome. So LaWanna has 20 years with us now. That's quite a milestone. Hired on in 2001 as a part-time administrative assistant and quickly was promoted to a library administrative assistant full-time in 2003. And then by 2009, she was a library specialist. And, you know, our library is known for their customer service. They get recognized a lot because of it, and it's because of people like LaWanna, who she goes that extra mile to make sure that everyone feels special, regardless of who they are, where they come from. She wants them to have a great experience at the City of Hoover Library, and we just appreciate that kind of attitude and customer service, and we thank you that you would treat all of our folks like that. That's just a wonderful, that's what we want to do in Hoover, and you exemplify that. But I tell you something that she did, she headed up our Food for Fines program where the library, you know, gets a fine if you late with your book. They developed a program where those fines went, or actually people could bring food, and that was exchanged for a library fee, and that went to the Green Valley Church Food Bank, which is something very important to our city. But we're just grateful for LaWanna and how she just exemplifies everything that we stand for in Hoover. We appreciate your service of 20 years and how you treat folks, and you always got a great smile on your face when folks see you, and I understand why. Thank you so much.
Madam Clerk, we're joined by Councilman Murphy, so if you could update the roll, please, to acknowledge his attendance. We're now to the regular agenda. Most of you may be aware that we did not get to have a work session on Thursday evening, so therefore we do not have a consent agenda. We will instead take each item tonight under consideration under a regular agenda and ask the department head who is responsible for that item to give us a brief 60-second update on that item, and then, of course, we'll have public comment and council comment before motions and votes. We'll move to item number 6, resolution number 6461-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution amends the budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th,
2021, as shown on Exhibit A attached to the resolution.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6461-21.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Bolt, if we could call on you, please, to walk us through this one, please.
Sure. So I know you received a packet about the mid-year review that we've been talking about for a little bit. So part of this amendment is that mid-year review. So looking at, let's do the slideshow. And is the clicker up here? Okay. Okay, go to the second page. So looking, just to go over the process, what we did was we reviewed all existing projects as a group, the finance group, and also department heads. We sent this out to department heads. They came back with feedback for us of what they considered, what we asked them to put things in 3 different groups, and we're going to talk about what those groups were. So we also included some minor operating adjustments for fleet maintenance and fuel, and then we asked for the mayor's approval of those changes. So that's how we came about this amendment. So looking at pending closeouts, that was one of the things. Group 1 and Group 2 that you already had in front of you before the list of the projects, those were put into groups. Group 1 are things that we are going to keep, things that we're still currently working on, things also that may be pending closeouts. Group 2 is the things that we know we're going to do. We've already allocated budget for those. Those things have already been approved, and we know we're going forward with those, and there's also some pending closeouts in those. So once some of these items that are pending closings will be completed, then we'll return, if there's any remaining budget, back into the appropriate fund, whether it be special revenue or general fund. So go back to Group 1. Thank you. So Group 1, again, these are funds that have already been allocated, a lot of things that have already been working on and are recommended to proceed, and this is based upon the feedback we received from the department heads. So if you look at that, our remaining budget in some of those items is $36.5 million. We have encumbrances of 7.3. We're not asking for any reductions there. So next page, please. So Group 2, these are projects that have been allocated. Implementation may be delayed for some reason or another. But looking at, and we've broken these down by what fund they are in, special revenue, capital projects. And you notice here, capital projects fund, which is outside funding. Most of that is ALDOT funding or some grants. So that is funds that are coming to us. We do allocate it in our budget because, again, we have to pay for it and then usually ask for reimbursement. So that's why we consider it part of our fund. But the total of the remaining budget on these items are $6.6 million, and then encumbrances of $41,000, and no proposed reduction in those funds. Next page, please. So Group 3, these are the projects that we're looking at to be defunded or reallocated. So we have about $3.2 million things that we probably approved years ago that have been sitting on our books that we're not going to do or we're going to have to delay. And so that we're asking for all that to be reduced or for a reduction. Now, as again, we did talk about, we've got some budget amendments for that. Notice here that you've got outside funding as well for $658,000. So those were maybe some projects that we were expecting some funds for, but we haven't proceeded yet and we're not going to do at this point. So when you reduce that, the 3.2 by 658, you're going to get about 2.5. So you'll see that number on the following, or on a couple of slides later. So looking at the proposed new projects, these projects are reallocations. These are the things that are requested to be funded. So, and the different funds there, so that's a total of $1.6 million. And then the next page, the net change in all the funds are, when we take what we're going to reallocate, what we've defunded, and again, this is where you see the 2.5, that is the reduction of the 3.2 from the 658,000 that was outside funding. So that's where that total comes from. So your net of what we are actually returning back to those funds is $904,000. So we're actually reducing our capital projects among these funds because we're not going to do some of those projects. So some of the requested operating changes that we're looking at, the operating is basically just fuel, $42,000 of fuel, and for fleet parts for $163,000 for a total of $205,100. Some of the reasons for this, if you remember when we did our budget, we talked about the gas prices. Our fuel prices were looking pretty good. They had been good all last year. And what have we seen? So of course, we're going to have an increase in fuel, and also for some fleet parts. Again, we were thinking that we could probably get by with that, but we knew we were going to have a mid-year review and that we might need some more. So that's where that came from. So we're looking at $205,100. And then with that being said, you also have the budget amendment that includes 130 Boss-Strong boxes. This is for out of Fund 261, and this is for the police of $173,450. So they're looking to use that out of their funds. Any questions? And I know I went through that really fast.
I want to thank you, Ms. Bolt, and Mr. Rice, and the mayor for getting us this last week. A lot of conversation I know has gone on through the weekend, and a lot of work to get the details on this, so I want to thank you very much for that.
Well, I have to say that we have to thank Claire Hamilton, because she did the majority of the work
Ms.
on this by
Hamilton, thank you.
compiling all this, and the department heads for sending this in.
Thank you for clarifying. Any questions from the members on the resolution?
Mr. President, just a comment, really. In Group 2, the replacement of decks and piers at Georgetown Park, I want to make sure that the staff keeps universal design in mind as they replace and repair those. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? We'll move to questions or comments from the public. Anyone in the public like to speak on the resolution? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and a second for approval of the resolution. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Item number 7 is approval of minutes from the April 29th, 2021 work session and May 3rd, 2021 regular meeting. Open for a motion.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the minutes without reading.
Second. Have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes. Any questions from the body? Any questions from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Item number 8 is Resolution 645821. Mr. Corley.
This resolution approves an alcohol license for Weird Fishes LLC, doing business as Whiskey Foxtrot Burger Dive, located at 2341 John Hawkins Parkway, Suite 119. John Zachary Williams and Benjamin Riley Williams, executives.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6458-21.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Ms. Dickerson, anything special on this license?
There's not. The letter was received from the police department, and they are not opposed to the request.
Very good. Any questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 9 is a resolution 6459-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution approves changing the dates of 2 upcoming city council meetings.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6459-21.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Ms. Dickerson, I understand this is for the July 4th holiday and Labor Day holiday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Very good. Moving from July 5th to July 6th and from September 6th to September 7th. Any questions or comments from the body on those items? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the resolution passes. Item number 10 is Resolution 6460-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Brocato to enter into an agreement with Pitney Bowes, Inc.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6460-21.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Dickerson, tell us about this item, please.
This is for a lease for a postage machine here at City Hall. I reviewed the current lease that we have. It was coming up to renew. And in looking at the numbers of the postage that goes out, I decided that we really needed a smaller machine, so I contacted them, and so this is the quote for that lease.
Very good. Any questions or comments from members? Any questions or comments from the public? We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the resolution carries. Item number 11, Resolution 6462-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Mercado to enter into an agreement with Contivity, Inc.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6462-21.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you. This contract will do something we have not done before in the city of Hoover, and that is to engage this firm to conduct an audit of the dependents on our health insurance plan. What this group will do, we'll reach out to each employee who has family or employee plus children coverage, ask those employees to produce documentation, just validating that those dependents are still eligible to be on the coverage. And one thing we like about this company is they made it real simple as these things can be. Employees are going to be able to fax those in, email them in. There's an online portal. They can take a picture with their smartphone. I know it's a little intrusive for all of us who are going to have to do it, but I think it's as simple as it can be under these with a contract like this. One thing I will point out too is that this contract has a guaranteed 2-to-1 return on investment for the cost of it, meaning that the company will ensure that they remove enough ineligible dependents to cover twice of what we're paying for the services. So if we don't meet those thresholds, the money will be refunded to us.
Very good. Any questions from the members? Mr. Lewis, when's the last time, to your knowledge, we performed this audit?
We have never engaged a outside company, to my knowledge, to conduct an audit like this. We did one internally probably about 7 or 8 years ago. Obviously, that's very time consuming on our staff, and we're not always, we have a good idea of what we're looking for, but these are the professionals. So seemed like a worthy investment.
Very good. Any other questions? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Item number 12, Resolution 6463-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution recognizes the work of the 911 telecommunicators in the City of Hoover Emergency Communications Center as first responders.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6463-21.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Rice.
Yes, sir, and Director Moore is going to join me. We're going to split up our 60 seconds, if that's okay. We know that we are served extremely well by all of our city employees, and we know that we have one of the strongest public safety networks in the United States of America, and I say that without any exaggeration. We also know that part of that network involves our emergency communication officers, or 911 dispatchers. Unfortunately, there's been some conversation around the country about whether or not the work that they do is considered first responder work. In Hoover, we've always referred to them as our first responders, because police officers and firefighters have no idea you have a problem until it goes through our communications center. And the work that they do is far more than just answering the phone and talking on the radio. They provide pre-arrival instructions, and they do life-saving things over the telephone. They also do things that can protect and save the lives of our other first responders just by their professionalism and their awareness of what's going on. So I'd like to ask Linda to say a few words about the statewide association and what we've all been asked to do as a city, and then we'll kind of tell you what the impact of this resolution will be.
Thank you, Alan. Just to add a little bit more to what Alan said, the 911 telecommunicator is recognized by the federal government as an administrative and clerical position. And since 1968 in Alabama, when we've had the first 911 call, as you might imagine, that job and those duties and responsibilities has changed dramatically. For whatever reason, this classification is still on the books. So at the urging of the Alabama 911 Board, the NENA Professional Organization, National Emergency Number Association, they're urging municipal, county governments, professional organizations to get behind the 911 Saves Act on a federal level and to pass local resolutions to strengthen the case and to recognize them as truly first responders and make that change happen. So appreciate your consideration.
Thanks, Linda. And practical impact in the state of Alabama is we hope to pursue legislation that would tangibly add telecommunicators to benefits that other first responders enjoy. Probably the easiest and first thing to identify is the what's currently called fire, law enforcement, or corrections, or stress time benefit under RSA. Telecommunicators are not able to avail themselves of that benefit. It's a benefit that the police and fire pay for themselves, but telecommunicators are barred from participating. We'd like to see that change. So there are some other things in Alabama that we think that we can pursue in partnership with several different groups once we have our governing bodies at the local level recognizing our telecommunicators in this manner.
I'll hit the button. Ms. Moore, thank you. Mr. Rice, thank you. Any questions or comments from the body for this?
Mr.
item?
President, if I
Yes,
may.
sir.
Ms. Moore, I think you've recently initiated texting in 911. Just want to get an update on how that's going, and first, and thank you for everything that you guys are doing.
Thank you. We appreciate your support and the city's support. So far, we haven't encountered any issues with that. So we'll be putting out more information in the coming days through social media. So
I know that's an important tool that you've added to 911 services, and
Right,
I
right.
appreciate your leadership in that.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions from the body? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. I know we're joined by some of the telecommunications professionals in the room. Would you guys please stand and be recognized as first responders? I know as long as several of my colleagues listen daily to your communications, so while we may not recognize your faces, if I heard one of you say a word, I would know exactly who you are. I listen to you every day, and I just want to tell you how much we admire your work and appreciate your service to the city. Thank you. Of course, yes. Would you guys come down, please, and join us for a picture? Now move to item number 13, Resolution 6464-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares that the weeds and/or grass located at 905 Shady Brook Circle, 2242 McGuire Drive, and 1858 Burning Tree Circle to be a public nuisance and orders the abatement thereof as provided under Alabama law.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6464-21.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Mack provided each of the members with a photo essay tonight of these properties. Mr. Mack, would you like to come up and brief us on these items, please?
Yes, sir. The photos y'all have were all taken this afternoon, so they're accurate on that. And they're all three have been sent notices, and this is the first hearing to declare it a public nuisance. So,
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Mack?
I've got one question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Sweeney.
Is the two homes, are they vacant, or is anyone living there?
one is the one on McGuire is occupied. The one on Burning Tree is vacant.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the members? Any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 14, Resolution 6465-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Brocato to enter into a tax abatement agreement with BioHorizons Implant Systems.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6465-21.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Knighton, tell us about this one, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Lyda, and thank you, council. We're very excited that another Hoover business is growing and expanding, and it's one that's a leader in our life sciences community, and that's BioHorizons Implant Systems located in River Chase. They're certainly no stranger to the community and to this body. And before I get into the details, if it's okay with the body, I'd like Mr. Todd Strong, the EVP and COO from BioHorizons, to tell you a little bit about his company and the expansion.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me here. BioHorizons, we've been in business for close to 30 years. We've been in Hoover for about a little over 14 years. We've got 200 employees plus here in Hoover. We've got about 600 employees worldwide. We're an international business, offices around the world. We love it in Hoover. We're right in River Chase, right by Bud's Best Cookies. I can smell them cooking every morning. We really love the area. We have international people come, obviously before COVID hit, all over the world, and just can't believe how beautiful, our area is, our office location. This expansion project allows us to vertically integrate our processes. Basically, this facility that we're expanding into and building, that work is now done up in Minnesota, outsourced to a third party, so we want to insource that. We'll hire around 20 employees within the next 2 years as we build this out, and appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
So absolutely, and thank you, Todd, for giving that overview. So what we're asking council to consider this evening is tax abatements for certain sales and use and real property or personal property taxes, of course, non-educational, that are allowed for by the state of Alabama under the Tax Incentive Reform Act of Alabama. One of the key things that we always like to mention is that we run a cost-benefit analysis on these projects before bringing them to council, and we have estimated conservatively a benefit to the city of just shy of $119,000 over the next 10 years, of which almost $92,000 of that would be additional property taxes for Hoover City Schools. So we always like to point out that economic development is not only good for the city, but good for Hoover City Schools as well. The city's estimated value of abated sales and use and property taxes is $86,958. The state and county abatements are estimated at just shy of $90,000. So this would be something that's shared in by the city, county, and state. So the total value of all abatements to BioHorizons would be just over $176,000. And as Mr. Strong mentioned, they'll be adding an additional 20 employees over the next 3 years with an average salary of $60,000 a year in high-skilled, high-wage positions. And they also will be taking in an additional 11,000 square feet adjacent to their existing facilities in River Chase. Any questions I can answer or Mr. Strong can answer for you?
Any questions from the members of the body? I want to point out and thank Councilman Murphy for his work over the past 7 to 10 days on this item. Mr. Murphy, for those who may not be aware, heads our economic development efforts from the council and did an outstanding job of vetting this and communicating with the council on it. So, Mr. Murphy, thank you so much for your work. Any other questions or comments from members? Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 15 is Resolution 6466-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes Mayor Brocato to make application with Alabama Power for the addition of power service for a new traffic signal being installed at Shelby County Road 41 and Hugh Daniel Drive.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6466-2.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Mr. Reeves? There you are. Come on up, sir, and give us a briefing on this item, please.
Yes, sir. This is a joint project with Shelby County. They actually have the turn lanes at County Road 41 and Hugh Daniel Drive installed. The traffic signal is installed. It's bagged. They're just waiting on us to authorize Alabama Power to release the power.
Very good. Any questions or comments from the members on this item? Any questions or comments from the members of the public? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the motion carries. Item number 16, moving quickly. Resolution number 6467-21, Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares drainage improvements along Tamasee Lane just south of Patton Chapel Road an emergency requiring immediate repair, allocates use of stormwater management funds for this repair, and authorizes the mayor to execute the necessary easements to access properties for construction thereon.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution number 6467-21.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Reeves?
Yes, sir. During the past year, as many of you know, we've had several flooding events in the Tamasee Lane, Chapel Road area adjacent to this. In our recent evaluation, we've noticed some improprieties in the storm pipes located along Tamasee. At the intersection with Patton Chapel Road, we have a 36-inch pipe that, as we go north on Tamasee, reduces to a 24-inch pipe. And then as it hits an inlet adjacent to the church parking lot, it goes back to a 30-inch pipe. This variation in the pipe size has been causing us flooding issues along Tamasee as well as adjacent properties. Know that the Jefferson County project that's ongoing right now, they're designed for their storm system in that area is for that 36-inch capacity, which we don't have. This project, if approved, will correct the pipe sizes along Tamasee. We're also proposing to go into the church parking lot where there's currently a 30-inch pipe, increase that to a 60-inch pipe, use that for detention. As you know, we've had some flooding issues from this basin downstream on Tamasee and Paulette. This will allow us to detain and help those issues. It won't solve all the issues downstream. There are 3 other drainage basins that flow that way, but it will help. We have met with the church. They're agreeing to allow us all the easements we need to construct this project.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Any questions or comments from the members? Any questions or comments from members of the public on this item? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 17 is an ordinance 21-2518, a second reading. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance amends the ground lease between the City of Hoover, Alabama, and the Public Park and Recreation Board of the City of Hoover, Third Amendment, as shown on Exhibit B attached to the ordinance.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of ordinance number 21-2518.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinance. Mr. Rice?
Yes, sir. Members will recall that about a year ago or so, we took all of our athletic parks and placed them under a master lease to the Park and Rec Board, and then we came back a few months after that, we added our passive community parks. In a recent contracting situation, we discovered a little anomaly trying to do a contract that covers all of the Hoover Met Complex because the stadium and everything else except the Finley Center are under ownership of the Park and Rec Board. The Finley Center is under ownership of the city. So that created a little bit of an issue trying to do a services contract out there. There are differences between the way that the city can engage in contracts versus the park board. So it's better if that's under uniform ownership on paper. Of course, every activity out there, all activities of the park board are wholly funded by the city, so it doesn't change, you know, who pays the contract or how those things work. It's just better if everything is under one side of the fence or the other. And the easiest thing to do is to take the Finley, add it to the master lease, and then it's very clean and we won't have any contracting issues.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Rice on this item? Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll and allow the members to vote.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. Vote of 7 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. Item number 18 is ordinance number 21-2520. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance assents to the annexation of property known as Phase 1 Everly PUD, as shown on Exhibit A attached to the ordinance.
Mr. President, I would move that we suspend the rules for immediate consideration of ordinance number 21-2520.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a suspension of the rules. Any questions about the motion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. 7 ayes, 0 nays. The rules are suspended for immediate adoption. We'll now entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2-2520.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance number 21-2520.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions from members of the body? Any questions or comments from members of the public? This is the first in a series of annexations we will have to deal with this item. I know Mr. Johnson is here. Should anyone have questions, Ms. Dickerson will be happy to answer questions. The members have seen a list of upcoming meetings, some special called meetings that we will have to have in order to get this in by the 180-day timeline. This body's seen that before, so nothing out of the ordinary there. Any questions from members of the public on this? Hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Sweeney?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. 7 ayes, 0 nays. The motion carries and the ordinance is adopted. We'll now have a first reading and set a public hearing for item number 19 to be heard at the next meeting. Ordinance number 21-2521. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance assents to the annexation of property known as Phase 2 Everly PUD, as shown on Exhibit A attached to the ordinance. And this meeting and public hearing will occur on May the 19th, this Wednesday.
That Wednesday,
At
that's
5
correct,
p.m.
5 o'clock. We'll now have a first reading and set a public hearing for June 7th for the following items. Item number 20, Resolution 6457-21. Mr. Corley.
This resolution declares that weeds and/or grass located at 4547 Highland Crest Circle to be a public nuisance and orders the abatement thereof as provided under Alabama law.
Mr. Mack, I don't think we have a picture of that one.
No, sir.
Okay, very good. We'll give them a chance to cut it, I guess, in the next 2 weeks, and you'll report back to us at that meeting?
Yes, sir. Tonight was just the first reading,
Sure.
but I'll have the photo for you
Very
on
good.
the next meeting.
Very good. We'll now move to item number 21, ordinance number 21-2519 for a first reading. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance is to approve the pre-zoning of 2560 Wood Meadow Lane from Jefferson County R2, or Single Family District, to Hoover R2, Single Family Residential District, as shown on Exhibit 1 attached to the ordinance.
Very good. Mr. Martin, would you mind giving us a quick update on that one, please, sir?
Sure thing. This particular piece of property, located adjacent to the Wood Meadow subdivision, is actually what we would consider a donut hole in our city limits. It's completely surrounded by the city of Hoover. The rest of the Wood Meadow subdivision to the north and west are zoned R1, single-family residential, and property to the east and south are actually located within the R4 multifamily residential district in the city of Hoover. So this would close off eventually with the annexation petition coming your way, close off a hole in our city limits. The applicant is requesting R2 to accommodate single-family residential lots that would be 12,000 square feet in size or more, as opposed to the 15,000 that would come with the R1. And they're proposing setbacks, minimum lot widths that would meet the criteria for that R2. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you might have. The Planning and Zoning Commission offers a favorable recommendation for the pre-zoning.
Any questions for Mr. Martin? Of course, we'll have a couple of weeks to mull this one over. Any questions tonight? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our agenda. We'll now open up for any comments from members of the body.
Mr. President, I have one.
Sure.
Had the unfortunate experience of my neighbor, who was 100 years old, passed away on Monday. And his family is from out of town, so his daughter's from California, and his son-in-law, and then he's got a nephew that lives in Ohio. So when they got here when his daughter got here to check into everything, Station 5 did an outstanding job of taking care of people in a very unfortunate circumstance, which they often do. But I want to say we had 2 officers respond as well. And one of those officers, and I'll get his name to you, Chief, stayed with that that man and woman who were from California who had just lost her father until they came to get the body, and it was hours. And I want to tell you how much they appreciate, and came over and told me how much they appreciated what he did. It was outstanding, and from them being out of town and not knowing anybody but us, his neighbors that were there, that was awesome. And I just wanted to tell both you and Chief about the way that they responded. You never know when you're going to need the services, but to see that firsthand and see my neighbor going through that was awesome. They did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. I want to point out one thing. I don't know if it was this body, or I think in the last term, we passed a resolution for the mayor to enter into an agreement with the National Center for Sports Safety. And you may recall they're an organization that trains each of our youth coaches on concussion protocol. And I had the unfortunate circumstance of my noggin meeting a foul ball at Spain Park the other night. And I'm not sure what the terminal velocity of a baseball is, but I'm convinced it reached it by the time it met my head. And within about 30 seconds, I had one of the leaders of the park that was at my chair walking through what I later realized was a concussion protocol that he had learned through this training. So as I got my wits back about me, it hit me that what we had approved a few years ago is put into action, and I was the beneficiary of it. So it's good that that happened, and it was good to see it at work. So anyway, to Dr. Lee Mack and his organization, very, very well done, very well done. We'll now open up for public comments. Anyone in the public like to speak tonight? Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Lyden. I hope you'll give me 39 extra seconds.
Take whatever you need.
My name is Robin Schultz, 348 Albemarle Drive. Mayor Brocato, councilors, at this evening's city council meeting, you passed ordinance number 6463-21, designating 911 telecommunicators in the city of Hoover as first responders. Thank you for doing so. It's long overdue. At the April 29th, 2021 Hoover City Council work session, Hoover CFO Tina Bolt gave a financial report to the council. In this report, she stated that the city of Hoover was enjoying an $18.1 million year-to-date surplus in the fiscal year 2021 budget fund balance. Credit for this can only go to the fiscal responsibility that both the mayor's office and the council, both the current and the previous, exercised during the troubling times between March 2020 and April 2021. All those responsible should be commended and applauded for this incredible accomplishment. During the summer months of 2020 and beyond, we also experienced a very troubling time in the city. We experienced civil unrest in the form of protests. For the first time in our lives and in the life of our city, we experienced a curfew. For the first time in recent history, we experienced lockdowns. And for the first time in our lifetimes, we experienced a pandemic of historical proportions. During these very difficult times, one thing was constant: our first responders. From the state-of-the-art 911 call center to the fine men and women of the Hoover PD and Hoover FD, all continued to work nonstop to keep our city safe. Thanks to technology, we were witness to our police officers taking verbal and physical abuse from protesters, often having human waste hurled at them while wearing protective gear that was certainly uncomfortable in the high heat and humidity of Alabama summers. Our firefighters and medics responded to calls that, at the time, could have put their lives in peril by an invisible virus. Yet they continued to serve and protect us as they had sworn to do, never voicing a complaint, never skipping a beat. We, the people of Hoover, recognize that, especially during the election of 2020. Every one of you sitting in this room who were elected did so on a platform that promised to never defund the police nor other public safety departments. On May 6, 2021, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced that the state of Florida was giving all first responders a pandemic bonus of $1,000. Governor DeSantis said the following: "Supporting our law enforcement and our first responders has been a top priority for my administration, and it has never been more important than over the last year. As a state, we are grateful for their continued service to our communities. This one-time bonus is a small token of our appreciation, but we can never go far enough to express our gratitude for their selflessness. I hereby ask that the city of Hoover give each Hoover first responder from telecommunicators in the 911 call center to the police officers in the various beats of the city, to firefighters and medics, to correctional officers, a $1,000 pandemic bonus from the city of Hoover as a small token of our appreciation for the work they do. This amount, which is between $400,000 and $500,000, represents less than 2.5% of the surplus that the city of Hoover is enjoying now. I hope you will consider this and present it to our first responders following the first city council meeting of June 2021, 1 year after the most difficult time of 2020 for them. You vowed not to defund them. Now it's time to fund them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any other public comments? Hearing and seeing none, we are adjourned.